All right, we are live, and I don't even know who's going to be on the stream, not on the stream. I didn't know if there was going to be a show today. Love doing the panels, but it's kind of a big ask. Obviously, we've got Nick Rekieta, who's doubling PBS numbers right now, and on Glenn Beck, and just taking the world by storm. So I'm just thrilled to have this. Now, in the spirit of Rittenhouse, I'm a pretty genial person, and a tweet came across that just somebody pointed out to me, and it pissed me off to the moon.
So we have to go to Twitter. We're going to Twitter. We're starting with Twitter.
Yes, why not? It's a Friday, but why not? Because what are the two things that I deal with all the time? Well,
you
lawyers,
wake up and choose violence.
There you go, and body language, right? So how about in the theme of things, we've got the Rittenhouse trial, and this piece of garbage hack
I saw that too.
Actually tweeted out this tweet, and this is disgusting on so many levels, because he's an embarrassment. He is an embarrassment to body language experts. He's an embarrassment to psychologists. He's a complete embarrassment and a hack. And this is somebody that I thought about reaching out to try to get on with all, because I've got all the top, many top body language people in the world. The whole behavior panel, I'm tied up with these guys. And he puts this out. This is just such complete garbage. It's complete confession by projection in my mind. And like I said, I'm genial, but that's just disgusting. I mean,
yeah. First of all, look, you can catch anyone. Okay, well, actually, let me back even further. This guy has been under a microscope for especially the last week, right? Every single moment that he is sitting there at the table, watching his trial, that is determining his fate, he has been under a microscope. He's had cameras pointed at him, looking for the slightest moment that he is going to do anything to show either disinterest, disregard, boredom, whatever. And so, of course, it's so easy.
Trials can be really boring.
Yes.
Yeah. Fair.
Chris.
Yes.
Chris. How much sleep do you think he's gotten? I mean, I remember day one.
You were in the flow, and I was the
so
microscope is intensified by the fact that the situation, you will get jurors yawning and sitting like this and sitting like this, and you will get people naturally wiggling and moving. These are long days in an uncomfortable location with stress and anxiety, and then those videos can be anxiety producing for people to listen to the chaos of the night over and over and over. So in the context of then having the cameras in your face and then the microscope that LegalBytes is talking about is pretty intense.
Yeah. And it's so easy to just find one frame throughout this entire day that he is there in the public, and find something that he's doing. He's mid gesture, and they're like, oh, freeze frame halfway through that gesture. That means he's subconsciously intended something absolutely disgusting. That's horrible, and that's so disingenuous.
Things out of context is
completely
in most cases, taking things out of context is intellectually dishonest. And there's been a lot of that on Twitter with this trial. There's been a lot of that with the way things are worded and parsed. And it's one of the things I find the most frustrating is I think it is not just disrespectful kind of to the general public, but it talks down to people. Like, if they had the context, they're not smart enough to come to their own conclusion. So let me take this out of context and then tell you what your conclusion should be. And it really frustrates me. And in this trial, we've seen a lot of that. And you can tell the facts and still have an opinion about them, but at least get the facts right to start with and then have an opinion.
Exactly.
Don't start with crapping up the facts and manipulating that to be something else. And
I'll go further. You're being kind when you say intellectually dishonest. It is flat out. I would go almost to evil.
Go ahead.
Because it really, really is evil. You are manipulating language, everything else knowingly. There's that joke, stupid or liar.
I will get to evil later when we talk about the prosecutor, because that was my former job. And so the rage that I have is kind of directed into some of these constitutional violations that are so deeply offensive. So I understand, Eric, when you look at people, and body language is a profession that doesn't always get the respect that it deserves. It doesn't always get the understanding it's deserved. So when you take it and spin it this way, it further damages the entire profession, and it further damages the entire area. And that's how I feel about Binger and some of the things he's doing. It taints the entire pool of prosecutors and people who are already biased towards or against prosecutors, saying, you know what, they're arms of the government and they just prosecute whoever. It leans into all of those worst things because it's shitty. And so this is, I can understand your anger.
Yeah, because they can just look. They can just look at these two bozos on this, that are trying this case and say, look, classic example. This is exactly why I hate prosecutors. This is exactly why I hate cops, because they're all together and they're all part of the state. And and let's have anarchy. Like
this is why the system doesn't work.
Yes.
And this is why people just get railroaded. The Constitution's in place so that people don't get railroaded. So the people who aren't offended by the constitutional violations are also pissing me off right now, because the Constitution's there to protect against the things that people are complaining about. And then they're saying, well, the judge is being this way or that way.
Well, they're going after the judge.
Violations are bad.
I'm so upset about that too. It's irritating because they're going after the judge like crazy. And Binger is playing to the press. He is not playing to the court at all.
Oh, God,
and setting the judge up, like the whole thing of the judge's ringtone is Trump's theme. It's like bullshit. That's Lee Greenwood's song from God Bless America.
Or
Lee Greenwood.
I'm proud to be an American.
Oh yeah,
that was the one. Which has been around since the 80s.
Yeah, I mean,
and the judge probably had somebody else put it on his phone because we know his level of tech savvy.
Well, and also he's an old timey judge. Like that seems like the kind of song, that an old timey judge would like. And
nice one, Avery. No, and but then they pinged on him too because it was Kleenex box. This is so, what? It's like you're outing yourselves, people, because first they ping on him for having "I'm proud to be an American," right? And then they say, "Yeah, notice this," and they put a circle around his Kleenex box, which is an American flag. Like,
he's in a courtroom upholding the Constitution of America.
Shocking.
The Constitution is racist. That's going to be the next one.
There are already issues. I mean, we need to have another anthem, right? According to people, we got to have two.
I struggle.
Wait, Emily, you have a Switch in your background too?
I do.
Switch?
I do.
We could be Switch friends. Yes. I didn't notice that until the super chat.
Yes, it's right back there. The only time it's not in my background is when I'm playing it.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes, right in front of my TARDIS. My background, sometimes I put things in and take things out so that when I stream for 2+ hours, my audience also has something to do and they can spot all the things that tell you what you need to know about me and my background.
I'm always changing the
mine is always mine's a lot of mine is just blocked by me. But
no, there's medals. I see lots of medals.
Yeah, that's true. And then there's the occasional cat parkour.
Yes, same. And mine is normally back there, but sometimes it's over here.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to watch it. And I tried to stay away from Twitter for the trial because I do not fight with people's feelings, because their feelings are their feelings. Even when I disagree, it's like, those are your feelings, but those are not facts, but those are your feelings. And I'm not going to fight with you. I'm not trying to change your feelings. I'm not trying to change your opinion. I just want the facts to be right, so you can have an opinion based on facts and not fuckery, really. And so I saw someone tweeting that the judge, he was going through like a kid's cookie catalog that you would get for like a fundraiser at an elementary school during one of the breaks. And somebody put a picture of him doing that and said the judge is reading a cookbook while witnesses are on the stand because he's already concluded about this case. And I'm like, that's just a lie. That's not even a misunderstanding. That's just a lie. And so that kind of stuff is very frustrating to me because it's manipulative, and it also it assumes that people aren't smart enough to come to their own conclusions.
Hey, Kurt.
Hello.
We're just griping about
Twitter.
Twitter and have you seen this tweet yet?
I have not seen this tweet. No.
It's
Go ahead and read it over for a second. See if you're as angry as I am.
Okay, so this is coming from some sort of doctor who's trying to make a professional opinion?
Supposedly a body language expert and a psychologist and doctor.
Okay, that's just irritating on levels I can't begin to describe.
Confession through projection, right? It's his own prurient thoughts, not Kyle's.
Yeah, I don't I don't even know what to begin to say about that. It's so dumb.
The thing is, show the video. If you want to show a clip of the video, clip 30 seconds of the video and show what he was talking about. I think he was talking about racking.
He literally was,
sure
yes,
was.
Yeah.
because they were asking him
And
about
was
it.
turning
and
his
he's
hand over
trying
to show how you would go
Yes.
ahead and rack, because it became a really central point in the trial, whether he had racked or not, because it goes to whether it was self-defense, whether it was intentional, whether he had time to process. And this was before the timing came in, where you really learned how fast this whole incident went down.
Yeah.
That's one question I have for everybody. And, you know, I've been listening with it in the background, but I haven't been able to participate, much to my chagrin. But why is it they did not time how long it takes to rack a freaking M16 or AR-15? Because to me, when you have Dr. Jack, you know, or whatever, Dr. Black or whatever, break
Dr.
it down
Black.
and say, here's the time. Okay, so tell me when he had time to actually do that action.
Or show me in the
Because
video, where is that? Show me in the
they
video
did
where
that
that
a
amount of
little
time
bit.
is.
But there
that
was no
he's
time.
racking.
He could
Right.
not have done it. And I think they should have done that, because that's a Lee Harvey Oswald argument. That's deep in the public consciousness already, of nobody can fire that many shots in that short period of time. So we've already got this, you know,
I didn't think about it
seed.
at all.
Well, I'm just saying it's a subconscious thing, and I could be wrong, but you know, there are people on the jury who may have heard that JFK, whatever, but it's a very good just timing thing. I mean, Kurt, I think you handle weapons some, right?
Yeah, no, I have some familiarity with firearms, and it's not only the issue of how fast it is to rack. The issue would be how fast it is to determine the need to do that, then do that, because the reason that you would rack or re-rack the firearm is because it went click instead of bang. Right? Something has gone wrong. It is misfed. It is stovepiped. The case is not ejected. It was a misfire. The round didn't fire. So some version of those things. So you have to determine that there is a problem, figure out to clear it, and do all those motions. It's not possible. It's just way too fast.
Exactly. And if you watch the video too, he shot Gage in the arm before Huber even hit the ground. Huber's still falling. So the time was, I mean, we're talking just micro.
The time intervals in this whole thing are so short, and why there wasn't more testimony about
there should have
reaction
been
time and perception and all the rest of it, because you don't even have to talk about firearms. You can just talk about any incident that happens fast, whether it's a car incident. You know, when you slam on your brakes because you see the guy stop in front of you, how long does it take to react to that?
Right.
You know,
yeah,
how
I was
long does
just
it
going to
take
say that
do all those things.
I think that one of the biggest misses by the defense in this trial was when they brought in the expert to show the increments of time on the film footage. They took so long to do that, and it made it seem like the moment lasted longer than it actually did. And at the end, like, I wish that if they were going to do that, I wish that they would have found some way to, at the very end, say, okay, let's watch the whole thing through and at normal speed.
They could have. They might do that in closing.
I hope so.
Yeah. They might. They should do that in their closing.
Yes.
They should give a sense for how fast it is.
It's literally so fast you can't have a thought. How are you going to have a thought in 3/4 of a second?
Yeah, it's like that. Did you guys see? You saw the cop in Columbus, right? Who shot her when she was stabbing with the knife going down by the car.
Yes.
Yes.
The cop that was responding to a domestic
the friendly knife
fight.
Yes.
Those. Anyway, it took me like 4 or 5 times to actually process all the information on replays to even see. And I think that they should have done that with a jury. I mean, literally with the witness. Like, okay, here it is, and do it full speed. Oh, here it is again. Do it full speed. Here it is again. Okay, so you see that? Okay, no, we're gonna have to slow that down because wow, that's fast. And just you know, the same way Binger, I can't stand him. He makes my skin crawl. But the same way in his opening, he used the repetitive motion. I would have done that blink, blink, blink. It's like, did you blink? Oh, wait, you might have blinked. Did you see that? Wait, you might have, and do it at full speed. It should just be hammered home that nobody
and they might
can
do that in
react
closing. They have 2.5 hours.
Not the way
of
Richards.
It's a long time.
God, please
It's
tell
a
me
long
Richards
time.
doesn't do the closing though, because the
I
way
hope
he
not.
bungles video.
He's not a great questioner either. He comes across, even to his own witnesses, as somewhat combative in his tone. And I think his co-counsel, just from watching it on the outside, has a much better demeanor and a much better flow. But sometimes that can really be an ego decision of who does the closing. Doing closing is the best fucking part of doing trial work. It is the best part. It is hands down my favorite. Jury instructions, which are going on today, is my least favorite. I loved picking a jury. I loved doing closing. Arguing over jury instructions in really contentious cases was always super critical, but also kind of mind-numbing, which I think the general public that's interested in this trial and is watching it is going to find out.
Yeah. I know that the chat, when shortly before I came over, the chat was like, I don't understand what's going on. This is really complicated. And that's because it is, even for lawyers that are understanding the process, just the arguments that they had to make, where they have to like kind of put on the other side's hat, as to why they shouldn't allow or they should allow. It's the arguments are very, it's like you're in the upside down all of a sudden.
Yes.
I have enjoyed the chat's confusion when you try to put on different hats, because I've had this problem in my own chat, or the problem in Nick's chat, where it's like, he asked me a question like, okay, what's the best possible case to convict? I'm like, okay, let me start doing that now. Here's how that would work. And they start like attacking me. Like, I'd never hire this guy. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's illogical. I'm like, I'm trying to work through a problem given a premise. Joe, a good logic was getting the same problem where he was doing the same thing today, and they're like, I'd never hire this guy. I'm like, you guys don't understand what's going on.
But the key that people don't understand, the key to lawyering is being able to look at it from the other side very effectively. You have to be able to do that.
Steel manning is going to be the most critical thing in the world, is to take their argument, put it as if you're going to argue it to the highest possible degree.
Yep.
And then figure out, okay, so how do I chip that apart?
How do I get ahead of it? Exactly.
Yeah.
But Richards is so frustrating to watch. His co-counsel is phenomenal on crime.
I'm a Sheriff VC stan. I'm a big fan of his. Like, I think every single cross-examination pretty much that he's done has been so effective, so crisp, because it's, and I've said this multiple times on Ricada's channel, but a good cross-examination.
True. True.
A good cross-examination is going to be one that is fast, laser sharp, and has absolutely no extra fluff, because you can very quickly lose the attention of the jury, and then they won't see your zingers. They won't see the witness say the thing that they don't want to say.
But he's also humble. He's not snide. Like Binger is unable to not come across as smug.
That's because Binger's in the middle of a campaign to run for office, not a criminal prosecution. That's why he comes across as snide.
He could present better, though. I mean, the other guy was just landing blows like crazy, but yet smooth. Like almost like he's sorry to point it out. It just is really well done.
I think I know enough to not feed the defense their case just constantly through my own witnesses. I know not to ask certain questions, because those questions are going to get me the wrong answers. So I don't ask those questions. I ask other questions and leave it to the defense to ask those questions. Why am I constantly just feeding them their case? It's weird.
This is a good question for you, Emily. What has the prosecution done well besides opening?
I only do the defend the indefensible segment when I'm over on vidIQ's channel. So I'm having a hard time wrapping my mind around what the prosecution has done well, because I'm so deeply offended by the constitutional violations. I think that the prosecution admitted evidence that nobody's vomited in open court. But they've been disrespectful to the judge. But I'm also coming from the perspective that I would not have filed this case. It's pretty hard for me to defend bringing this case. I understand why they did, but it is when you take this case down to each incident, not what happened before, not what happened after, you take it down to each incident, those incidents are self-defense. So no matter what you think of Kyle Rittenhouse, if you're like, that kid's an asshole, he was at that bar in that shirt. Yep. Totally assholey. Yeah, his social media handle was 4 doors, more whores. Yeah, guess what? 17-year-olds are dicks. But that doesn't mean it wasn't self-defense. Yeah. Hey, he shouldn't have even been there. I agree with you. I don't think he should have gone there. I think it was a terrible decision. But that doesn't negate self-defense. Yeah. So when you look at those incidents and break them down, the prosecution filed this very, very fast, and they didn't need to. He turned himself into police and wanted to say this happened,
He had to
And they
try to
didn't
turn himself
handcuff
in.
him. He tried to turn himself in,
It's like,
and they pepper
please
sprayed him.
go
It's
home.
not
Yeah.
like he was going to run. So
Yeah.
it was very interesting to see how quickly they went to file this. They needed more information. There was so much video of that night. They should have taken their time and made that decision, and they didn't. That might be the way their office does things. I mean, not every prosecutor's office is perfect. I don't like this case from the beginning, but I really don't like the demeanor in court has put me off so much. It's hard for me to see any bright spots, especially with yelling at the judge. But maybe that's what they did. They riled the judge, and we got the, don't you get, what did he say? Don't you
Brazen.
get brazen
Brazen
with
with
me,
me.
which was a great moment for memes. So
Yeah.
that's what the prosecution's done well. They've brought the memes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Although-
There
They're
you go.
memeable.
All those, I mean, they've also brought a lot of those memes on themselves.
Oh, yes.
No, we're not saying.
That's what they did well. They've been memeable. I'm not
Yeah.
saying it's a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
They've made the law entertaining.
They've given us some fiery moments in court,
Yeah.
and they've let us see the judge just flip the fuck out, which has been entertaining.
Yeah.
And so for the television aspect of it, for the
Yeah.
justice and faith in our system aspect of it,
Right.
they've been a mess.
Yeah.
I don't like that they played dirty.
I
there was
don't
no
either.
There was no point more disheartening when I read the information that they filed, because I appreciate that they were open and honest with all the bad information in their information. But how can you read that and say, yeah, this is definitely a case we should be for it? You prove self-defense in your own charging documents 6 different ways. And the fact that you know that and you're still going forward, that might have been the single most disheartening moment of the whole thing.
My whole thing is that, okay, if they prosecuted, we can't not prosecute. There's, people died. I think Ricada said that, 2 people died and 1 was injured. You can't ignore it. It needs to go to a jury. Well, then just present the case. Don't play dirty. Don't dox.
Yeah.
Don't do all this stuff. Just literally, it's a loser, whatever. Go in and present the case to the jury with, here are the facts, here are our facts, and this is the stance of the state. And then the defense can do it and move on. But the dirty play, I feel, is what makes it so completely disturbing. I mean,
but
Emily,
it's an ethics violation for the prosecution. The prosecution has ethics violations. They can't just bring charges for the hell of it. They have to bring charges they believe are legally sustainable.
Yeah, they have to believe they can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. And the goal of a prosecutor's office, and I think this gets lost a lot behind ego mostly, but the goal of a prosecutor's office is to do justice. It's not to represent the victim. It's not to represent anyone else. It's to represent the people of their state and to try to maintain the security and safety of their state by prosecuting crimes against the people of that state. It shouldn't be outcome determinant that, like, oh, fuck this defendant, so we're going to prosecute him. It should be, these crimes pose a danger to the state and we are prosecuting it. And a jury is going to decide what justice is in this case. Sometimes that's a guilty, sometimes that's a not guilty. And if a case is clearly a not guilty, or even if you don't believe that you can prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, you do not bring the case. It's not the ethical thing to
Maybe
do.
I'm thinking grand jury. Maybe it's like it should have never gotten beyond a grand jury in the sense of, like,
grand jury is easier because you only need the probable cause standard, so you got that going for you. But still,
well, I'm just asking because I know that some honest broker prosecutors, I think one of them got fired for taking it to a grand jury and then the case getting dismissed or whatever because he presented it like, yeah, it's not really a great case.
People need to have the courage to do the right thing, and when they don't have the
Maybe
courage
bad.
to do the right thing, it's a disaster. And that's what happens with outcome determinate prosecutions. And it shouldn't be that way.
I think there's a lot of skepticism of prosecution in general because of false convictions. And sometimes prosecutors going to what seems to be really ridiculous lengths to keep prior convictions in place, despite not just DNA, because DNA doesn't necessarily tell you everything because, it could be someone else's DNA. But in the face of overwhelming evidence of false testimony, false confessions,
Right.
the entire case falls apart. And it's really disturbing. I can't remember the name of the case off the top of my head right now. It was that young boy who was accused of, I think it was decapitating like a friend or something and putting him in the fire and all the rest of it in Illinois. But everything fell apart. All the witnesses were proven to be completely unreliable. And the prosecution's just keeping the case and he's still in jail, and it will be indefinitely because all of his appeals failed. But why is the prosecution working this hard? It
I generally think
confidence.
it's ego, because it shouldn't be ego. It's not, as a prosecutor, it shouldn't be about you. And that's definitely not what we're seeing from Binger. It's about your case, and it's about your witnesses, and they tell their story. And if the jury believes them, they do. If they don't, they don't. But we saw that in the Duke LaCrosse case too. The head prosecutor was manufacturing evidence because that's outcome determinant. I believe in my gut that they did it, and I'm going to make sure the evidence proves that they did it. I have had cases that I believed in my gut, that person did this thing. I do not believe I can prove it, and you do not prosecute it. Because if really somebody is a criminal leaning into criminal activity, it will come around again. And it's better to have somebody go free than to throw somebody in prison that shouldn't be there.
Hello, Alita. Hello, Emily.
Hi.
Hello, David.
How are you?
I had to rush to shut the cupboard door behind me because I know my wife will kill me if she says, "Why do you do a stream with the cupboard door open behind you?"
Yes, my family doesn't like to hear me streaming either.
Well, no. Who was it that we were doing a stream with, and they had a bathroom door open behind them, and nobody noticed until the internet noticed.
Oh no!
Oh my!
No, it was on Dave Rubin, and I forget who the guy was. He got properly roasted on the interwebs, but.
Oh no!
Are you guys? Are we watching the closing arguments? Whatever they're doing,
they're doing jury instructions. I've been watching a lot of them. The judge is this close to being able to realize that he made a mistake on the gun possession charges. So,
did you guys see that? I mean, you obviously saw that Grosskreutz is going around on USA Today giving what are they called? Interviews that contradict his sworn testimony during the trial. I don't know.
Oh, shit.
I
did not see that.
Yeah, no, he did.
Oh, nice.
Now, does that, I don't know anything about this. Is that grounds for a mistrial with prejudice? Because the trial is still ongoing.
Well, you could recall him, right? Because even
I think they all
now they've rested.
Oh,
yeah.
they can, I
you can ask permission to reopen.
This office isn't going to go after him for perjury, but I think you could bring it to the judge's attention and go from there.
By the way, this is kind of an inception.
Lawyerception.
Lawyers watching lawyers talk about lawyers talking to the judge about jury instructions. Lawyers commenting on lawyers commenting on lawyers commenting on trial.
Oh, that's funny. Look, his perjury would only be.
I hope somebody screenshotted that, by the way.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. You need 3 more images on the inside. Like you need 3, the judge and the prosecution on the inside, and then like 2 more in a perfect pyramid.
Yeah, exactly.
How many do they have on stream right now?
But he was on CNN too.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
My numbers aren't quite there.
Hey, but they're good. Those are good numbers.
Speaking of which, let me go.
Your numbers will get there because you're putting out a quality product.
Yes.
Thank you,
Yes,
especially with everybody here. By the way, I did have a side question for David. Somebody brought up the squirrels. So, who's getting more mileage, Viva Fry out of a squirrel or Nate the lawyer out of women's soccer?
I can tell you without doubt, Nate, out of the women's soccer, my squirrel has been thoroughly exhausted, and I have saturated the market with oral videos. But
somebody just clipped my squirrel has been thoroughly exhausted. I can see that being very helpful down the road on the internet.
The first one got millions of views. Then the second one, or one of the other ones, which was great, got millions of views off of GoPro. But now, if I put up a squirrel video, it'll get 100,000 at best, which is still pretty good for squirrel stealing GoPros. But the level of effort that goes into getting the GoPro back is too much now.
Well, at least you got a GoPro out of it.
Squirrels don't always bring in your ideal audience, where I think the women's soccer is bringing in people who are interested in the other content as well.
Yeah.
The women's soccer. And that trial starts sooner than later, right?
We're on an appeal, yeah. So that appeals. I don't know if it's been scheduled or not for the women's soccer.
All that I know is I cannot wait for Don Lemon's trial, and that I hope that's going to be broadcast, because I'm going to be doing. I mean, I don't think it's going to have the interest that Rittenhouse has.
There's too much happening.
Well, it's coming soon, and I am thoroughly interested in that case, and it's going to be what is the word? Not lascivious.
Yeah, that sounds good.
It's going to be a dirty trial, and there's another one that's going on at the same time. Cardi B is going on at the same time, so that's.
Well, I can't wait to see Barnes
Maxwell's coming up too.
Yeah, I was going to say Ghislaine Maxwell
and Josh Duggar.
I keep forgetting about him.
Who's Josh Duggar?
Josh Duggar is one of the 19 kids and counting from a reality television show who is indicted for possession and holding on to. No, it's possession and another count of child PORN, and the evidence against him is that we've seen in the court documents is pretty strong because the feds don't, play around with that kind of digital evidence. But his defense team has definitely earned their money. The thing that I've appreciated is it's actually been good lawyering, like good, clean lawyering in that case, well-written motions, good arguments. Yeah, the defense throws up everything to see what sticks, but that's their job, and they've done it with integrity. So it's been really fun to watch that kind of play out. The trial is going to be brutal, and I think a jury is going to hate that they have to see some of the things that were on his computer, and they're going to be real. A jury is going to be real angry that they're made to sit through it, because once they see the weight of the evidence, they're going to be like, no, you didn't need to make us sit here.
Who was Josh Duggar to begin with? I don't know.
19 Kids and Counting,
on
reality
TLC,
TV show on TLC.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's one of the 19 kids from 19 Kids and Counting. It's a fairly, they've got a kind of a quirky following in the way that people who watch kind of
TLC,
whatever their branch of Christian fundamentalism is.
If you have 19 kids, you're going to have one reject. 18 for 19 isn't too bad, right? If you're a parent.
Well, not to ask the bad question. How old was he in respect of the other 19 kids, and what was his relationship with the other 19?
Yeah, that's coming up in the trial. There has been some unfortunate events when he was a minor and his sisters were minors that they are seeking to bring up in trial between his sisters from ages 5 to 12 while he was a minor. So
I know that
those prior acts they're asking to bring in.
There's a really big age spread between the oldest and the youngest. Like they had adult children when they had the youngest kids.
Yes.
Oh, they're saying he's the oldest, but Emily,
so he is the oldest. That's I would have questions. Viva aime manger de l'écureuil avec sa poutine. So I enjoy eating squirrel with my poutine.
No.
I like that people came in to super chat to insult you in French.
That was a compliment.
Cleverness.
Squirrel meat is very lean meat. I've never tasted it, but I've seen some shows where they eat it. Josh Duggar. Yeah, I don't. It's the same reason I wouldn't want to watch that. I don't have the stomach for those types of things. And some people are saying he molested his own siblings, which was where I was.
So that's what they're trying to bring in, those prior acts. He was never prosecuted for it. His family's fairly prominent in the area of Arkansas that they are in, and he was allowed to go through counseling for it, but he was also a juvenile at the time. So him being a juvenile means that these things tend to go to juvenile court. I had way too many cases that are just like what was going on with Josh Duggar and his siblings when I was in juvenile court. But when everyone is underage, the cases do get held and dealt with differently. And generally those prior bad acts don't come up because they are sometimes expunged. They aren't always on the record the same way. And the defense is arguing the only reason the prosecution knew is because a tabloid made a FOIA request and the police department accidentally released the juvenile police reports, which they should not have done. So that is the only reason the prosecution's aware of these prior alleged bad acts, is because they were celebrities and it was out in the news media. So it'll be an interesting trial legally to see how that all comes in and what the rulings on the motions in limine are. Those rulings haven't come up yet. So
salacious, David.
A lot of legal to come.
Salacious is the word I was looking for. I'm just going to run and turn off my dehumidifier. Give me 1 second.
I've got my humidifier running full speed. We could trade. So that's coming up at the end of the month. And then today's Britney Day. So Britney Day is going on as well.
Now, is that finally, is that actually coming to an end today? Because I got so confused on the timeline.
I don't know if it's coming to an end because, even if the court terminates the conservatorship, there are still so many financial documents that aren't done that there are still court proceedings to come, no matter what happens today. Alita, do you have thoughts on what you think is going to happen?
On whether or not they're going to be ending the conservatorship. I mean, so last I remember looking into this one, they said that from the last hearing, they said that they had set the date for the hearing, but they were allowed to stipulate to end it sooner if they wanted to. I haven't actually heard much since then.
They did not. Well, there's a lot that's happened, but they did not stipulate to end it sooner. But it seems that everyone's in agreement on the motion to terminate the conservatorship.
That was the impression I got.
Yeah, it'll be very interesting to see if they terminate the conservatorship of the person only and leave the conservatorship over the money so they can still pursue James Spears, because they want to roast his ass. Like that is the goal now, is to find all of the, malfeasance or misfeasance, if there is any, And the stuff that's been happening in court lately is a bunch of motions to quash subpoenas because Rosengart has started subpoenaing everybody to try to figure out what's been going on over the last.
By the way,
years.
as long as we're on the subject of Brittany, I did make a somewhat unfortunate trolly comment, as I sometimes do on Emily's chat, and I never apologized for it. So I'm sorry about that one, Emily. That was
I'm sure my mods were in.
No, the mods definitely took very massive action against me for my for my trolling behavior.
The chat has rules.
Is there not
I
any
might have
remaining,
broken the rules.
Is there not a lingering aspect to Britney Spears that she still wants something of a conservatorship, but she might be viewing it as something of a managerial type thing?
I think
under the misnomer.
I think if anything, I think her estate, the financial side will go into a business manager plus a CPA, which is not uncommon in celebrities. It's just the restrictions of having someone else in your medical business and such. I can't imagine that she's just going to, I mean, she's a very big celebrity. She's still going to have people around her. I think she doesn't want to have to ask to go on vacation and doesn't want to ask to spend her own money. She had a very restricted allowance that was less than what her dad was making as her conservator.
Which is insane.
It's insane that at almost 40 years old, she has an allowance. And there will still be restrictions with her kids because there's still a custody order and a family law case. So there will still be some things that happen in court, and there's still accountings that they're fighting over.
Yeah.
Brittany's father's lawyers spent over $500,000 dealing with media matters on his rehab his image publicity tour. They're asking for over $1 million in legal fees, and that's
and then at this hearing, the court is also going to decide whether her mom can have her fees paid out of the conservatorship, right? Which is so stupid. Oh, it's December.
December 8th. There's a big financial hearing then.
They do not need to wait that long because there is no support for that under the law.
I want them to wait till then because I like the way Rosengart claps back in his motions. I don't know if he writes them or if an associate or a paralegal at his firm writes his motions, but the amount of clap back with all due respect, go fuck yourself in his motions is beautiful. They are very well written. Much different than what we see in like the Erica Girardi case, where we've got an attorney that just got removed off of that case, rambling stream of consciousness and emails. So it's been interesting. The pop culture world's been busy while the Rittenhouse trial has been going on.
Well, yeah, you got
There's
Alec
so much
Baldwin,
going on.
obviously. That's like half
he just
of
got
my
sued, yeah?
Yes, suits are dropping. We're going to be covering that today.
Did they actually file like a written PDF suit that anyone has access to?
I have it. I'll send it to you, Viva.
Okay.
I've got it.
I'd like to see that too.
Sure.
Yeah.
Add another thing to my inbox, Viva. That's
great. Well, if we can line up the content, right?
Well, I mean, I think that's going to draft itself in terms of what they allege. The like the Travis Scott lawsuit, which was, I mean, it's pretty formulaic in terms of what they allege, but it's going to be in terms of maybe additional facts that people are not fully aware of or were not fully aware of.
This one has additional facts. It's filed by the gaffer that was standing right next to Helena Hutchinson when she was, or Hutchins when she was shot. And it has detail of him holding her in his arms while she is passing, but it's for the negligence of the injury to him because he had like literally things scratching his glasses because the bullet passed so closely to him.
There's
so
also the spider bite victim.
Suit.
The spider bite victim who is suing and trying to get any kind of workers' comp. He's going to possibly lose his arm. But
workers' comp, maybe. I don't know how you sue for an act of nature.
Anybody wants to know? I have a lot of Alec Baldwin folks on my other channel. So you're very interested.
You've got stuff of Alec Baldwin that only people with connections can get to. Like it's not stuff that is featured in the news just yet.
Yes, we got the budget. We got the script. We'll get the script. The suit from Emily. So
Emily, if it's alleged in the suit, does it allege how Alec Baldwin came to pull the trigger? Like, was he fooling around? Was he rehearsing? Was it?
You know what? Let me pull it up, and I will. Did somebody say the grift it, Eric? That's funny.
I'm trying to learn.
I just started reading this morning. Plaintiff is informed and believed that the ammunition used on the arrest site was never stored securely and was simply left unattended on the prop truck.
Goes without saying.
And that the revolver was left unsecured, which we know. Let's see.
What was Alec Baldwin doing physically with the gun when it went off? Like, I was wondering, was he like gagging around with it? Was he? Who? I mean, if you're rehearsing, also,
I'm
why
not
would you?
sure. That's not completely clear, and that's something I'm really wanting to find out because they
I'm
haven't.
looking now.
What exactly was happening? Supposedly, they were doing a shot setup, according to
Yeah.
the suit, and had no relevance whatsoever to him and the gun. However, the shot that they were setting up for, we got the script, is the climax of the movie. It isn't just him going pop, but it is literally a full-blown shootout with everybody. It was going to be, full-blown, gun day. And he was practicing the cross draw. Now there's some difficult procedures involved. And, I don't necessarily want to defend Alec Baldwin, but I have to be honest where I can.
Yeah, let's
He
be fair.
very well could have been saying, well, we're doing this and they're doing the light and the rigging or whatever. Let me practice, because he's doing a cross draw with a single action gun. And I think it's kind of complex to have to draw it. Now somebody's going to say I'm masturbating on Twitter, but anyway, and then I don't know. I imagine that the sequence is challenging.
I just saw that tweet, by the way, Eric. I'll have to go assess.
Yeah, I opened with it because it pissed me off to the moon.
Yeah.
I hope he's shamed.
Yeah.
All right. Do you want to read? Do you want me to read
sure.
it?
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it. Let's do it.
They are leading up to the fact that they're in the small church. In the facts of the incident, they're in the small church and they're talking about the scene, and they say what happened next will haunt the plaintiff forever. As defendant Baldwin practiced his move for the scene, plaintiff saw the Colt revolver being pointed in his direction after defendant Baldwin had removed it from the shoulder holster. Suddenly and completely unexpectedly, plaintiff heard the loudest gunshot he had ever experienced on a movie set. He felt a strange and terrifying whoosh of what felt like pressurized air from his right. He felt what he believed was gunpowder or other residual materials from the gun directly strike the right side of his face and scratch the lenses of his eyeglasses he was wearing. Good thing he had glasses on, which is why everybody wears protective eyewear when they're shooting. In addition to this direct physical impact, the loud burst of sound from the Colt revolver also impacted his hearing. Noises sounded muffled in both ears. Instinctively, plaintiff turned to his left, away from the explosion, stunned and shaken by what just happened. And as he did so, he noticed Miss Hutchins on the ground, holding her lower torso area as Mr. Souza screamed, "What the fuck was that?" Defendant Baldwin yelled repeatedly, "What happened?" Plaintiff knelt down to check Hutchins and was not sure what happened. It did not appear to be a wound on Hutchins' abdomen, but she exhibited considerable pain. So plaintiff helped lay her down face up and positioned his hands behind her head. And then they go into cradled her and then noticed that her back was becoming wet with blood, which is where the exit wound would be. And then started talking about all of that. But they didn't say what happened, other than he was standing right by the camera talking to them about it while he had the gun out. But we've seen other reports that he was just a few feet away, which is why the bullet went through two people, because of how close he was to them. So that's the beginning of it. It goes on for another page and a half about
good
that.
imagery.
Yeah,
I mean,
I definitely.
Well, that's what the plaintiff's going to do in this.
Yeah, I know they should. They should do that. It's
There's
just,
so much wrong with this.
I remember reading in one of the articles, quoting someone that had been on set, that apparently Helena had said, like, one of her last things that she had said was that she couldn't feel her legs. I don't know if that's in the complaint too or not. But
I saw that she said this is not good.
That's what I saw.
Someone says joystick fanatic says, was there no medical on set? I mean, I presume there might have been.
I think there was medical. No, there was medical, because the 911 call said that they had medical.
I'm not sure it would have made a difference at that point.
Right.
I don't know if it would have made a difference with this kind of.
It's a 45
injury.
round.
yeah, with
What
a
does
45
that mean?
long call. No.
Yes.
So for anyone who doesn't know what that means, and that would be me, like, what does that do in terms of entry and exit wound and like the
A lot.
It's
I mean,
big.
Yeah.
it's a slightly slower round than, like, say, a 9mm 357, but the impact is so powerful. It's, I mean, way up there.
So there's 2 centimeters in an inch, right? So that means it's a centimeter, roughly speaking, in diameter. And the amount of pressure behind it, you're talking about something like 900 feet per second, if not more than that. You're talking about a bullet that's probably 60 grams and coming forward with all that force behind it. You're talking about a lot of kinetic energy that's coming through. The hydra shock from the bullet just going through liquid, which doesn't compress, is pretty serious just in and of itself, let alone the piercing of organs. So you're talking about some really serious damage.
Oh yeah, I mean,
You know, as
that's
that bullet is passing through, even if it doesn't hit an organ,
it'll
moving
remove a
through
limb.
It's moving through liquid, and so that liquid doesn't compress, so it moves, and now all of a sudden you're bleeding internally. So it's all bad.
Yeah, it's among
I'm
the worst.
reading some of the comments here from Cyril Arnold, who explains what a 45 will do.
David, you
human
should be a
body.
co-host and should be able to pull them up.
I have not
Well,
accepted the
it's
invite yet, Eric. That's why I'm realizing what.
45 ACP. So make sure
I
you get it right.
love that StreamYard added teams. By the
Me
way.
I know, but I
too.
can't get my
Back
team
end of
member
us
to
being
be a team member. So
Let
I
me
don't
see-
know.
Their
Let me
teams?
see if I can do this now. But Eric, you
There
may
is
not
no
want
I in
me-
team, but there is an I in Viva.
Yeah.
And there's also a no, never mind. I can't. Okay, Eric, I'll do it for the next time. But you also may not want me bringing up chats with the obsessive compulsive level that I would do it. It's a lot of
I'm
chats
fine,
here I
dude.
bring up. No.
Oh,
Okay, well,
Emily,
there
you're
was that.
going to cover.
that's been Viva Fry, everyone.
okay.
What happened? Am I
You-
frozen?
You glitched
were.
right as
Yeah.
you were saying something.
Yeah, the damn Canadian internet. No, I was going to say that lawsuit sounds like it's drafted in a way to protect Alec Baldwin, where he's saying what the heck, and so he sounds
Well, they're
surprised.
suing
and not,
Alec Baldwin for negligence. They're suing Rust Movie Productions,
You're going after Reed.
Hannah Gutierrez Reed, Sarah Zachary, Seth Kenny, Dave Halls, El Dorado Pictures, Calvary Media, Thompsonville Pictures, Brittany House Pictures, Short Porch Productions, everybody. And let's see, is Alec listed? Only as the producer, not listed in the individual capacity. So maybe.
Interesting.
You know, it's weird. One
is
thing that
interesting.
did come out in the budget that shocked the hell out
Oh
of
no,
us.
they sued him. It was Alexander that threw me off. Alexander R. Baldwin III. So yes, he is being sued. in the
It's-
individual
it still
capacity.
is
Sorry to
interesting
interrupt.
that the allegation is not as you could have included a more damning allegation, so you presume that it would be the truth in terms of Alec Baldwin's reaction, because they presumably would have wanted more negligence if they're going to allege it, but
Right.
still pretty negligent.
Well, criminally, they're going after Reed, it looks like, because notice that Hall's name never comes up anymore.
Which is interesting to me because he had prior incidents on set, and
Yeah.
unless he's not the one, unless they have plenty of witness testimony saying he's not the one that handed the gun, but it was
No, he is the one. He admitted
Right.
it, but his lawyer is like a former prosecutor in Santa Fe, and I get the vibe. I think he's a flip, and they're
He might
going
be.
after Reed.
He
I-
might be,
I-
but at the end of the day, she was hired to keep the guns locked up and to keep the guns safe. And there was not just one or two rounds of ammunition found that were live. There were many rounds of ammunition that were
Great.
live.
Just great.
That shouldn't have been there. And she's the armorer, and there shouldn't have been live rounds on that set at all. With a
And I
gun.
noticed.
Well, they're saying
I-
it's framing and possible sabotage, and we're looking into it. Well, I mean, okay.
I was
there
going
were
to
so
say, I
many
noticed that
problems.
the investigators ruled that out.
Did
The
they
sabotage
roll that
claim.
out?
They
Did-
that's what was reported.
Yeah.
When
I-
was that reported?
Yes.
Just the other day. Rittenhouse has been going on. That's probably why you missed
Yes.
it.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
I only
I'll
noticed
look
it
into
because Emily tweeted it, or Emily tweeted it.
I've been trying to keep, it's been hard to keep focus on how many things because I'm always tempted to go down a rabbit hole, but I really do try to bring a variety of topics, and sometimes it is very hard. This week has been very difficult to parse attention in a million different directions because I've been like waiting for the Britney hearing. I didn't think the Rittenhouse trial would have as many peaks and valleys and as many moments in court, because it seemed to me that the prosecution could present a pretty easy case, that some of these witnesses would say what they'd said in interviews, and it would just be a pretty standard trial. And that's not at all what's been unfolding in court. So
Yeah. Well,
I also wouldn't have expected the prosecutors to be as dirty as they were.
Yes.
I mean, like, you know, color me naive, but I just would not have expected that.
I'm with you too. I'm like,
Yeah.
who does that? When you protect your conviction, because
Yeah.
what's the point of getting the conviction now if it's just going to get overturned on appeal? Maybe it's to diffuse the angry mob. So it's like, when it gets turned over on appeal, like look at the Bill Cosby case. It got overturned on appeal. People were mad for 2 days and then everybody moved on. But if they hadn't filed it when they did, I think people would have been mad for longer. But you don't, that's not the point of a prosecutor.
Right.
It
And
is. I'm not
sorry,
wrong
go
in
ahead, Bea.
characterizing it. It's an asymmetrical relationship. You expect a zealous defense of the defendant, but you don't expect a zealous prosecution of the accused. I mean, that's where one is in theory pursuing justice, and the other one is zealously defending the interests of their
unless
client.
it's Timothy McVeigh. I mean, so I could sort of see where maybe they're a little more zealous on occasion than others.
But you don't have to be particularly zealous when it comes to something like Timothy McVeigh because you have all the evidence ever. So you just can go after him because he's the bad guy.
It shouldn't feel personal. It should
Well, I
feel
agree
like
with
they're
that.
presenting their case. It shouldn't feel like it shouldn't ever feel like it's personal against the defendant, because it really is, this is the case I'm presenting, the jury is going to decide. It shouldn't be, I am going to bury you. That's not the point. Even if you feel that way, you have to put it aside and be an ethical professional. And more so when you represent the state. Defense attorneys can get away with a little more. They have a little more leeway. They're defending the constitutional rights of the defendant. The prosecution doesn't have leeway there.
Well, using your analogy, literally the defendant is absolutely personal. So I guess that makes sense. I love your analogy.
That's how they zealously prosecute or zealously defend their client. But people forget that the victims of crime don't have the constitutional protections that the defendant does. The person in that courtroom who has the rights and who the things default to are the person that's facing prison time, which can be a conflict morally about, yes, but these people lost their lives. These people lost, livelihoods, family members, whatever it is. And that's where the victims' rights advocacy groups come in. But at the end of the day, the defendant has the constitutional rights and the victims don't have the same protections. And the prosecutors aren't there necessarily for the victims. And there's a lot of times in cases where prosecutors do things that the victims don't want them to do. Plead out cases that the victims are angry about. Don't file cases that the victims are angry about. But the state represents the state at the end of the day.
Is there any outside chance? Some people are saying if Rittenhouse gets acquitted, then presumably Grosskreutz becomes guilty of at least a potential charge. I'm not sure it's dependent on acquittal, but is there any chance after Grosskreutz testimony that the Crown or the state decides to go after him? Or is it?
I like it on
television.
I should have been a prosecutor in either Canada or the UK because I like the Crown better than saying the state.
Her Majesty, is there any chance Her Majesty?
I feel like I was maybe meant for that and missed an opportunity. But with Grosskreutz, if I don't know what they told him because they didn't execute a search warrant on him because of Marsy's Law, which is the strangest thing I've ever seen.
What is Marsy's Law, please?
Marsy's Law is
it's a victim's rights law,
but it's generally notification. You have to tell the victim if you're pleading a case and they have an opportunity to come to court and make an impact statement. You have to notify, and prosecution's office have to notify victims if a defendant is getting out of prison, things like that. It gives them rights to be heard so that prosecutors don't just deal cases without ever letting the victim know. And the victim's like, I gave a police report. And it's like, oh yeah, we pled that guy for 2 years. It's done. And the victim never had a right to come to court and never had an opportunity because they weren't told. But it doesn't really apply when it comes to search warrants for evidence. But I don't know if the prosecution made a deal with Grosskreutz because there's a potential Fifth Amendment there. He was also there that night with a weapon. He also pointed a weapon at somebody's face. But it doesn't get him away from perjury. I just don't know if the state will do that.
No, probably not.
And they didn't go after Zeminski either, who clearly committed a felony.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think
weird.
It doesn't make any sense. I don't know criminal law. I just know that firing your gun in the air in public.
This is all you need to know.
is felonious.
Outcome determinant and outcome driven prosecutions are bad for everybody. It's bad for everybody. They could have charged him and still brought him as a witness. I've brought plenty of witnesses out of jail. They don't always like it because they get them up very early and their lunch is crappy when they have to come to court. Well, they don't love having to come be a witness, but I've absolutely done it. And you say, hey, we prosecuted you too. Yeah, fuck you. Okay, great. But what did you see that day?
Did Schroeder take any flack for his Asian food comment, or did the media
on the lines he did?
Wait, what?
Oh no, yeah, you missed this yesterday on Twitter.
I was doing other stuff.
Oh yeah, so he said we're having Asian food, and hopefully it's not delayed at the Long Island or Long Beach port.
It's not delayed. It's not on one of those boats outside of the port.
Yeah. So this became a racist thing. It became a joke about Asian racism instead of about shipping.
Right,
which is actually making fun of Biden, for God's sake, and not the Asians or anything about it. They can't.
But either way, the media doesn't like that.
Well, no, they'll find anything. But that's like the
course.
one thing he did do that I think was probably bad form, and Nick even said, is when he did the applause for a veteran, and the only veteran in the room happened to be the expert witness.
He didn't
Or
think it through.
Kinda,
Yeah.
I think that was
went through, yeah.
problematic. I think if the prosecution hadn't gotten chewed out before, I would have had a problem with it, because you're now telling the jury that this is someone to be applauded and that this is someone who should be like held up
Revered.
and respected. But I mean, it is an expert witness. They do have a resume. They do get to be cross-examined. I think that the prosecution would have made a bigger deal if they hadn't gotten chewed out so much and their violations hadn't been so flagrant. But it was not. I think the judge could have just said, it's Veterans Day. To any veterans in the room, we appreciate your service.
boom, there you go.
Yes.
And then shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't think it was, sorry, I don't mean if I scream so loud. I didn't think it was that big of a deal. It's not even clear if the judge, what the judge saw when he said applause. It was like something he was going to do regardless of if it was
Right.
one person or 50 that raised their hands. The idea that this is somehow going to...
He pointed it out, though. That's the issue. Is
He
if
did.
Yeah.
he just said to all the veterans, "Thank
Yeah.
you," and then pointed out that
He
you're
said,
a
everybody who
veteran,
has
aren't
served,
you?
stand up.
He
Yeah.
made it a
And
thing.
so he singled him
Yeah.
out, and boom.
Yeah.
That was the
The
issue.
the real risk there is because he didn't seem to know off the top of his head
Correct.
whether any member of the jury was a veteran or not. I'm sure it was in the questionnaire somewhere, but he didn't seem to know that at the moment. So the
It
real
might
risk
not
in my
have been.
mind, the real risk in my mind was that one of the jurors is going to stand up. And now suddenly we've raised them up and elevated them up in advance and elevated their importance in the jury room and potentially tainted the jury deliberations. How fun.
Yeah, it was bad all the way around. It was not
He
well.
said-
It was not well thought out. But I also think, I don't think it had ill intent. Where I
No,
don't
it
give the
didn't.
prosecution the same
they're
leeway,
bastards.
because
Well,
the prosecution, I think, did that
The
intentionally.
other thing is like
with
this
it.
is
Yeah.
it's being aired 24/7 in its availability. Everything is being scrutinized. I mean, if anybody goes to court, they'll see behavior which is a little stranger, a little more inappropriate. You'll see judges lashing out more in ways that would make you think the judge has a personal vendetta against one of the lawyers. Like, this is just that people are presuming all trials go off without any slightly
No.
questionable or bizarre incidents. This has been 2 weeks broadcast day in and day out.
Trials
I'm
are-
shocked that
trials
there
are
hasn't been
weird.
more. Yeah.
And
Again,
you'll see, if you're in a regular criminal court that's a day in, day out, full-time criminal court, not a special trial court, not a federal court, but your state level court, you'll see the prosecution, the defense attorney talking to each other all the time. You'll see people walking in and out, other attorneys walking in and out, the clerk making jokes with, the attorneys. It is a very much more loose form courtroom most of the time, unless the judge is really, really particular. And for a lot of the audience, it can be very off-putting. They're there to watch a family member be arraigned for something, and they don't know, and they're like, what is happening? Why is everyone just walking around talking? It's like, because we work with each other all day, every day for the last 3 years, and it's just
Mhm.
your workspace.
Yeah.
I had a very strange experience with that when I had my first too much information incoming, but the doctor and one of the other supporting doctors during my C-section were talking about the Laker game, and I was just like, I'm here, y'all are just like doing what you're doing, and I'm over here behind the blue curtain having a C-section. It was very strange, and that's when I was like, oh, this is what everyone sitting in the audience feels like when we're all joking around with each other before court starts or in between breaks.
Mhm.
It's everybody's like, this is really stressful for me. Like, my family member's here on a robbery arraignment, and we're all just like, so what'd you have for breakfast? Are we getting lunch? Who brought coffee? Are there bagels? Which courtroom has bagels? Which
Did you see
courtroom has
last
a
night's
jury?
episode of Real Housewives?
Yeah.
So you felt like a car, is what you're saying, Emily. Like there
I
were
mean,
two
a little
mechanics
bit. It was
working
like,
on you and just chatting away.
But
Yeah.
I can get that criminal court can absolutely feel like that to people too. And I think that's what people don't understand when they see into these moments in court where the judge is ordering cookies and the judge is acting the way he acts day in and day out.
Mhm.
This is his workplace, and this is the way he acts. He's going to know these clerks, and oftentimes judges will pick them and fight over good clerks and work with them for 10 to 15 years or more. So it becomes this very insular little group in court, and
Family
that's some of
almost,
what you're
right?
seeing.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Something-
they
yeah.
are. So
Emily's anecdote reminded me, here's a little TMI as well. When my wife was giving birth and I was in there front and center and I was with the doctor and I was like,
With the GoPro?
no, so I had
were you front and center, or were you by the shoulders where you were supposed
no,
to?
no, I
Where
was-
was
I
the
was-
squirrel?
Where's
I
the
was front-
center?
I was front and center. And not speaking of the GoPro, Eric, I put the GoPro on what I saw to be a tray, right in front so I could get the whole thing, just leave it there to get the whole video. Doctor comes in, or the OBG, whoever it is, OBGYN, and says, what is this? And it was on the utensil tray. And I was like, that's my GoPro. I was like, you can't put that here. This is a sterile thing. And now that was the first inappropriate thing. Then the other inappropriate joke was when we were, witnessing this magic happening, and I said, this is as close to a threesome as I've ever gotten, and the doctor did not.
Oh my God, your wife is such a patient woman.
I don't think she heard it, but the doctor did not find it funny. It was quite funny in how unfunny the doctor found it. I thought
There's
it was
all
funny,
these
but
moments that my husband.
This is why I
had
love
as well.
Fridays.
There's all these moments where you take them with you to do those pre-appointments, and they're like, "Wait, you're gonna do what? That's gonna go where?" Especially with the initial internal ultrasounds, it's like a scene from what is that movie? Knocked Up. It's like the scene from Knocked Up where they've got the giant wand. That's actually what they use. So
fun.
Did you have
something to look forward to?
Not to ask too many personal questions. Did you have was it a C-section after? Did you have a vaginal birth?
No, it was Travis was an emergency C-section. And that's a very long, protracted story, but he was in the NICU for over a month. So it was a whole thing. And then Griffin was also a C-section, not as much of an emergency. I got to pick his birthday, and they were between, President's Day and Valentine's Day. I'm like, I don't want to make the kid's birthday Valentine's Day. We're going with President's Day. So we had a little bit more of a choice, but both my kids had true knots in their umbilical cord. So had they been burned another way, they might not have survived that process.
Yep.
Well, I know that also usually
two C-sections.
Usually, if you have one C-section, usually births afterwards have to be C-section, which was not the case for my mom, because she had 2 C-sections and before me, and I was born naturally.
You were a VBAC.
A VBAC, vaginal
I was
birth
a
after
miracle,
C-section.
you guys.
Well, you still are.
You
I
are
love
a
that.
miracle. That's right.
I was the 5th of 5, and I weighed 9.5 pounds. And
Oh my God!
I just fell out apparently.
Wow.
The one thing I was thinking, like the vaginal birth, for anybody who has not had this, is like, I didn't realize what goes on to get the placenta out afterwards, and to make sure all the placenta's out so that there's no risk of infection. And the doctor, they're wearing rubber gloves up to their elbows for a reason, and like, it's shocking. I saw it, I caught a glimpse, and I was like, holy
So far, we've been doing pretty good on monetization.
This is way too much information for my taste.
My wife did not even notice it. It's like she's holding the baby, everyone's like, we're all engrossed, and then I looked down, I was like, oh my God, that was like the one thing too many that I saw in the childbirth.
That's why you stay by the shoulders. But the C-section is the emergency C-section is a very specific, specific thing I wish on no one. But it was really funny. I was home back in California. Well, I guess Tennessee's home now. I was in my childhood home in California for Vid Summit, and went out to lunch with my parents and ran into my OB. And we had such a lovely conversation, and it was really fun to get to show her how the kids were doing, because my birth events traumatized her as well. So it was very nice to get to have a conversation about
Sorry, Mark.
Yeah, I think the cringe factor is definitely going really high, especially with males.
Guess what? Women have babies. Deal with it.
And to bring it back to
people have babies. There, deal with that.
I don't want to get into that, man.
I just got a notification from Timcast that said apparently the gun charges were dropped. Let me see if
I know they were talking about it. They were along the way. Yeah, they failed to prove that it was a short barrel rifle, and it was a really annoying argument when they were still arguing it over as part of the jury instruction, because the prosecution was saying, well, they didn't prove it wasn't a short barrel.
An affirmative defense.
They don't have the burden of fucking proof.
They didn't prove it. They didn't prove it wasn't 18 inches or 24 inches. I'm like,
that wasn't Binger. That was his partner, right? Because
Krause, that was Fat
Krause
Boy, whose name was Grouse. That was Grouse.
He's the whiner. Oh God, they're such a pair.
They didn't raise the affirmative defense of the gun was really longer than we've said it was, but that we didn't actually ever argue at any point.
They have to prove it, and this is something you learn. This is not the prosecutors. This is the prosecutors making a mistake because they weren't prepared or just don't care. But this is something you learn in every case. You have to prove that it happened in the jurisdiction, and it takes you as a new prosecutor, 1 or 2 judges going, tell me why I shouldn't dismiss your case because you didn't prove it was within the county of Los Angeles. And you're like,
nice.
I didn't ask. Damn it. I meant to ask, because those are your foundational questions. And that the first time they brought the gun out, they should have gone through all of those measurements with the gun. And if they didn't do that, that's a failing. But that is something like in drug cases, you have to prove that it's a narcotic. You can't just have a police officer say, this is that. You have to prove it with a lab slip.
Yeah, I know.
These are foundational proof things that aren't.
They tried that, by the way. The Krause said, "Oh yeah, we asked one of the police officers whether or not it was a legal firearm, and he said no. So we've definitely raised that issue from the legal conclusion."
Prove it.
Yeah, it's like,
what was it?
yeah.
I heard somewhere, and somebody can confirm this or not, but I was thinking it must just be pure hell. From what I understand, Binger has had like 400 cases in front of Schroeder.
I was talking about that because it was information sent to us in the chat one day. But Schroeder said earlier, you were assigned to my courtroom for quite a while. So those 400 cases will be matters that come into plea, matters that come in for preliminary hearing, misdemeanors, trials.
But dealing with Binger for 400 cases, poor judge.
Yeah, unless Binger has changed when he became, because he's the assistant DA, right? He's up in the management level of his office. He's not just a line deputy
DA, and
he has political aspirations.
Oh yeah, he does.
The best elected DAs are the ones who are like, I really don't want to do this, and all their colleagues are like, you need to be the boss of this office, please run. And they're like, I really don't want to run for office, and you're like, you need to run for office. Please do that.
If this guy runs for judge, I'm throwing in my name in the hat because this is ridiculous.
You're going to go run against him?
Yeah, at this point,
do you have to be licensed in the jurisdiction to be a judge?
Probably have to be licensed.
Pass the bar, I'll do it.
That's fine. That's fine. The February bar is coming up. I can take the February bar and get licensed in jurisdiction and run against them. It's like there's no way this guy should be judge because I understand law and stuff.
But the amazing thing is that you're putting it all in perspective, and Kim Gardner and all the others. I mean, now you see how this could have all been posturing to play to the political leanings of his demographic, whatever riding he's in, and could very well get him elected. And I would be.
I think there are counties in the states.
Well, the sovereign says districts, I believe. No, sorry, but
the crown.
The question was going to be, if he were to get sanctioned, however, by this judge, would that put a stick in the spokes of his political bike?
Well, it will help with my attack ads. That'll be great.
Not if he's running for office outside of law. It might be, I got sanctioned because that judge was this, that, and that. It'll become a talking point. I think he could get sanctioned. I almost got sanctioned once for my face. So the only time I really felt
so did Binger yesterday.
Yes, that's the only time I felt empathy towards him, when the judge was like, what did I say to make you make that face? I was like, I've been there.
That's funny. My brother is a huge proponent of your face jokes still. Like, and anytime I say anything, it's like your face is whatever, but that's hilarious that you can actually say your face got sanctioned.
Yeah, I made a face at the jury. Somebody gave a funky answer on voir dire, I think, and I made a face because I make faces, and the jury started laughing, and the judge went off on me for making the jury laugh.
Well, it's nice to know that men can get sanctioned for the face too, so it's equal opportunity.
Do you guys know that lawyer? He ran this commercial. I'm a lawyer, and he apparently got sentenced for making a hand gesture to a judge.
Was it the gesture that Kyle Rittenhouse was making in court?
I believe it was that. I believe it was that. And by the way, I just saw that tweet.
Make a gesture? I missed this memo.
No,
the
tweet that we went over.
Oh, with that gesture.
No, he didn't make a gesture.
The gesture.
I thought it was a middle finger gesture we were talking about. I was confused for a second.
Oh, it could be an okay sign in their world.
Well, that's another thing that I saw. Somebody took a still of the judge when he's explaining, because sometimes he makes. Yes, and as he's explaining, and so somebody decided to take a still frame of that and say, obviously he's a white supremacist.
All right, did you capture that for Alita so we can spread it around?
No,
I didn't actually close the 2 digits, so it didn't actually make the.
I'll Photoshop it. I'll Photoshop it in.
We got it covered.
You'll interpolate it, right?
Every time the judge pontificates,
fill in the pixels.
Every time the judge pontificates, he does go and it's more like a pointy than a circle. So
Yeah.
who ran an article about impugning the judge's decisions?
Oh, they're
and
going after him like crazy. Yeah.
He had God Bless the USA, the MAGA national anthem on his
song
phone.
from 1984. The song, I had to look it up. It's decades old.
It was probably his fight song in college.
That's probably when they put it on the phone.
On the flip phone. There was a defense attorney that I really liked who was very technologically not savvy, and his teens would change his ringtones, and he couldn't figure out how to turn his ringtone off, and eventually we helped him, but his phone would go off in court with the funniest songs, and the best one I think was Miley Cyrus Party in the USA, and it was just, he was like, he would get so frustrated. He's like, my kids keep changing my ringtone and I can't figure it out. It was hilarious. And this was like pre-iPhone days, so it actually took work to change your ringtone.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was, those moments in court can be very light, just not when you're in a televised murder trial.
Funny thing is,
funny.
I
Have
can't
you been
actually
in-
recall. I don't actually know what my ringtone is because I keep it on like silent or vibrate like all the time, because why would I ever? I don't know. Like there are too many opportunities to get interrupted by something.
Emily, have you been in a televised trial?
No, thank God. I have not.
I was just curious what, how that would be, because I would feel really self-conscious myself.
My life has completely changed. I was not on social media. I would run away from press inquiries and be like, no, talk to media relations. Like, I didn't want to have anything to do with it, mostly because LA County is so big. I didn't want my bosses to pay that much attention to what I was doing. It's like, let me just do my work, and don't know who I am. I'm fine here. So I really tried to stay away from media cases. And then as you move up in your career, or as you are there longer, that starts to become more prevalent. But I was not going that direction after my spinal fusion before I quit the DA's office. So no televised trials. I wouldn't have wanted to be. It's tremendously stressful. And the LA County DA's office has a unit that trains for those types of trials.
I would hope so. I mean, you have all the talent in the world, coaching and whatever else on public presentations. I would think you would.
It's less than you would think.
It would be a wise investment.
How about some Toastmasters classes? I did Toastmasters for years and years and years. It's great. Just some basic public
useful.
speaking. It's fun, fantastic.
I'm just looking up. I don't recall seeing any Canadian case that was broadcast live, but apparently it happens occasionally. I've actually
the serial killer, Paul
Bernardo. I don't even think Bernardo
I thought
trial
that one
was. I'd have to see which ones were. I don't recall any offhand, and I can only think of a few that would have been prominent enough to even warrant it.
What is the can you go sit and watch a trial?
You can sit and watch a trial. Anything that's not in camera, or as we say in French, à huis clos. You can't
Sounds so
watch
much better.
typically children's stuff or youth stuff. More often than not, divorce stuff. But any corporate, typically any criminal, you can get in there. They might exclude you for certain witnesses, but they have like their camera section where the people come out to give public statements afterwards. So I can't think of any time.
One thing I liked about Canada.
To the comment, I was not the lead prosecutor on Lindsay. I helped with the tech aspect. So during that all of those things, I was always sitting up in the jury box to the side. I was not at counsel table. That was not my jam. So I worked with that prosecutor. She and I were also in a murder trial where most of that was going on. So
okay, and
yes
Canada,
and no.
David, one thing I like about it is, from what I understand, all interactions with the cops are recorded by video. Any interrogations, etc.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I don't have much experience with that. I just know that the cops were wearing body cams, and
Okay, I don't mean there, but any interrogation, from what I understand, has to have cameras rolling. Versus like the FBI, where for a little bit, I don't know if they're still doing it, but they literally could not record it, and it was all notes, which I always found very sketchy. But then knowing the FBI anymore, it's like, well, I guess that makes sense.
I don't know, but I would be shocked if there were not interrogations in Canada, even with police, that were not recorded for whatever the reason. But
whoa,
touch wood. I'll
Ooh. I have to poke over my head over there and see what's going on. If that's true.
Context.
Yeah, I need to poke my head over there and see what's going on.
Well, I just published in real time the summary of yesterday's final day of evidence. So hopefully that'll I'll go blast that around Twitter right now.
Viva, friends of mine were asking what happened with the judge, and I found your video with the clip down judge unhinging on the prosecutor to be one of the most helpful. I was like, just watch David's video. You're fine. You're fine. Here it is.
It's an amazing thing. Like, people think that that's a sign of bias. I don't agree with Joe Neerman's total assessment, but it might be a sign of bias that he didn't sanction the prosecutor, because any other circumstance I think he would have, but for the fact that if he does now, he knows that he's going to get reamed for doing it.
You could see him biting it in when he's like, that's all I'm going to say about that. You could see him wanting to take a minute to really think about what he was going to do next. It doesn't mean he won't. I had a judge who called us back after a verdict came down and then lit into the defense attorney and then set an order to show cause and then had hearings on it after the trial happened. So the judge didn't want to get into it during the trial and wanted to wait till after the trial to really deal with it. And I thought that worked well.
Well, that I also think he was right on the verge of talking about a mistrial, but didn't want to look like he was advising the defense on what they should do. But then the defense either got to it before or ultimately got to the idea of a mistrial. So then it was freer to discuss. But yeah, no, that judge, I mean, he's been probably too patient, but I think he's been absolutely perfect for the job. I mean, he's done a great job regardless of what the media does to skewer him.
I think he's been fair. I've seen him give thoughtful consideration to the things that have come before him. And I've seen him be willing to change his mind if something changes. And really all you can ask for in a judge is someone who is willing to research if you ask them to, willing to follow the law, and willing to explain to you what they're thinking and will listen. That is what you need from a good judge. And this judge has shown that he's willing to do all of those things, sometimes maybe to excess. But I think that that's okay. I would rather have a judge let the attorneys make their record more than cut them off and risk the stuff that comes on appeals because their records haven't been made fully. So
I definitely think he's completely fair. He also, I've noticed in some of the motions, his decisions, he leaves room. Like,
which is
for
weird
now,
the way
I'm going to say
that.
this, but so it's no for now. We'll look at it later, and I kind of appreciate that. I feel like he's very intellectually honest in the sense that, even when Krause was mocking him and, just doing the boomer routine on him, he was like, yeah, you're right. I don't understand this equipment. And I was like, what a great answer though. No, because he could have, you knew what Krause is doing. He's egging on, he's sniveling.
Sure. The judge, like a reasonably smart person, he probably does understand more than he lets on that he understands. But
the way he broke it down, you know that.
He broke it down better than Krause and better than Binger. I mean, he broke it down and better than me. First of all, I've never fully appreciated what interpolation means. I mean, I've worked with Photoshop where in order to make something higher resolution for blowing up purposes, I never actually appreciated what it totally does, and I didn't totally appreciate the importance of that objection in the first place, because it wasn't just a question of enhancing, interpolating a picture so you can get a clear vision of what everyone agrees with. They wanted to then read into a specific act by enhancing it and thereby modifying the image itself in order to draw perhaps the most meaningful conclusion that was not even supported by their own evidence, that being Kyle pointed first at Rittenhouse, Kyle pointed first at Rosenbaum, and you couldn't see a damn thing from that. It was a car wreck, those two images. So
before I left Rekida's stream to come over here, we were looking at those two images, and we were just like, you can't even see, like, where's the gun? Like where you can't see an outline of anything there. You can see a strap continuing across his body and then not continuing across his body, but which way is he even facing? Like it was so confusing. But so I think sorry, I totally cut you off.
Continue, no. But so how did it end? So it's allowed, but I presume he qualified it as in it'll be up to the jury to determine what they see in that, if anything.
Yeah, I think so.
This person posted they can now consider if Kyle was provoking the guy that got shot, and that would negate a self-defense claim if that's the case. So, which
the
judge kind of almost has
all instances, or
no?
Which
the judge can now consider if he was provoking the guy that got shot.
Well,
Rosenbaum, because remember they're trying to say that he pointed the gun at Rosenbaum, so therefore, Binger's so full of it though. I mean, it's like you are.
I don't know how much that matters, because even if he provoked him and then retreated and then was chased, the defense, if they argue well, can argue that he retreated and then the chasing, you've already extended your time past provocation. It'll be interesting to see.
Oh boy.
But I think that could be enough to confuse the jury into thinking
Yes.
that if anyone was already of the opinion of like, well, you shouldn't have been there in the first place with a gun.
No,
Then that just adds that kind of gives them a formal jury instruction for them to apply that line of reasoning to say, well, him walking around with this gun was reason enough for him to be provoking other people. There are people that could be thinking that. I don't agree with that, obviously.
I was making a face at the comments from KM about interpolation has helped with Brittany's recent edgy photos on Instagram. Brittany's been very naked on the gram.
She has. She's been very free, it seems.
Yeah. We freed all of Brittany and I'm here for it.
Provocation was being present and not staying on the premises like the mob asked them to do, and by leaving the premise, being provocative by carrying a gun by doing it. We'll have to catch up and see what happened there.
In an open carry state.
Yeah, I mean, well,
I think it's very likely that this jury hangs. It just, based on the way the evidence has come out, I think that that's probably the highest likelihood is that this jury hangs.
I'm with Barnes on this one. And Nate had a debate with somebody on Matt Orfala's channel, which proves what Barnes was saying. Barnes said there's 100% jury selection. Richard screwed up completely by turning down the behavior panel. The whole behavior panel volunteered to go help select juries. So top body language people in the world, yeah, are right there volunteering your time, but no, we don't want them. And Nate was debating somebody who's like millennial splaining, which should tell you exactly who that person is just by their name. And that person was like, yeah, moralistically, he shouldn't have been there with a gun. He's guilty. I it's like if those jurors are in there, he's screwed because everything else to them is irrelevant. It's like he brought a gun, there was a shootout,
and that's where the hang comes in.
Guilty.
But that's where the hang comes in because there's going to be a few jurors that are like, no, I watched this video and this looks like self-defense, and that's where the hang comes in. Well, unless they split the baby with all of those, the
lesser charges,
unless they split the baby with all those lessers.
And I don't know. I don't say that. I mean, I'm repeating what others have said. It's a Kenoshan jury, so I would presume that Kenoshan juries, like others have, suggested, might be prone or to being sympathetic to carrying a firearm as per the law of the state, and therefore would not see that as provocation. They would see it as Second Amendment rights. You get 12. I mean, so you'd have to get 12 people who are outliers as far as what one would think of a standard Kenoshan to then convict because carrying a gun is naughty and everything that ensued is his fault. Possible. But to turn down quality expertise, and it wasn't just for jury selection, it was to run a parallel jury during the trial potentially to see how people are reacting in real time. You look a gift horse in the mouth and you can start asking some questions.
And we basically ran a parallel. Well, Nick Recato on his channel ran a parallel jury of people going, this is what we thought. But sometimes it can be detrimental to the lawyer in the case if they have a strategy to have outside input where you don't want to shift course mid-trial, but you also have to know how things are being perceived. I also saw a question in the chat about what happens if there's a hung jury. It depends. The prosecution can choose to retry it. The judge can step in, but it depends on the hang. If it's 11-1 for acquittal, it's going to be different than if it's 11-1 for guilt. That's going to be different if it's a more even split in the middle. So it's really going to depend on if it splits, how it splits.
Oh, somebody just pointed out, and I feel terrible because I have a locals chat going and I haven't been looking in there. So sometimes the locals chat that happens at the same time has the memes going on.
That's hilarious.
That's hilarious.
That looks like Contra, the new Contra, not even the classic Contra.
Well,
it's been very interpolated, very deeply interpolated.
It was interpolated NES Contra.
Oh God.
Oh dear.
No, that one's not as good. Let's see this one. How many misconducts before a mistrial? That's not bad.
No.
What is that?
Clearly see.
No. Just nope.
Yeah,
no kidding. As long as it's a handgun.
Oh, and twice. Zeminski and Grosskreutz. It's rules for thee, but not for me. But it's a smaller gun. It's less scary.
I will say though, I've prosecuted a few assault with a deadly weapon cases with skateboards, not uncommon in LA, and people can be very significantly injured with skateboards. So I saw the social
somebody
media
was
experts
killed.
saying, yeah, people have been killed with skateboards, but I saw the social media experts being like, oh, how dangerous it is. It's a skateboard. I'm like, very. They have handles.
I posted
Yeah.
a video of somebody getting clocked in the face. There's 2 good
That's
videos
a
on
lot.
YouTube that show you someone getting clocked in the face with a skateboard, and anybody with half a brain knows that it's no different than a baseball bat. It's just sharper and narrower if you want to hit from the side.
And those trucks can, I mean,
it's the thin piece of wood that'll split your skull open. It's
Yep.
Oy, all right, now do we go back to I mean, what's the afternoon plan? Have they broken for lunch?
oh, good question. I don't know. Kurt
Not
said he's
yet, it's
coming
early.
back. I don't know. So he's probably deep into it.
He may be hooked over there.
Oh, there's more people on that stream.
Yeah, there's a few.
Mm-hmm.
Just a few people showed up over there to watch.
Yeah, there's 66,000 people on there now, so it's grown.
It's
75,000.
equaling PBS. I mean,
Later today, I will be talking about housewives because there's a lot going on in the Girardi case over on another channel. I have lots of streams today. So
Oh my gosh.
a attorney was removed or fired or something, and there's Twitteriness going on. It's all kinds of stuff. So,
Well, later today, actually, I guess I should plug my own stuff. We'll
Yes.
be talking more Alec Baldwin, and that should be at 5:30. Either it's going to be a premiere or we're doing a live stream. I don't know which, but Emily's going to be sending me the lawsuit hopefully soon too, to go with our
yes,
pile
I'll have to
of
download it.
content.
Yep.
I deeply appreciate that.
Not a worry.
And until then, I think everybody's going to go run out and attend another trial or drive to Toronto or do all kinds of crazy things.
First thing I'm doing is plugging in my computer. And speaking of plugs, I just posted.
Did you just pop another one, Emily?
We binged. Thank you. All.
Nice. Where'd you go?
Wow.
170. But people are asking, are we doing a live for Brittany? I have Friday Night Live every Friday night at 7. So I will absolutely be live for whatever happens. If they terminate the conservatorship, I might just drink an entire bottle of champagne on stream and see what
Ooh.
happens.
Hey.
So we might have a very chill stream. I might make fun of Lynn Spears some more in her motion. I might reread the transcript from the 29th in dramatic fashion, which was very fun to do because Vivian Thoren, James Spears' lawyer, kept saying things like, but Your Honor, he's like a stranger. How can you appoint a stranger to take over this estate? He's a stranger. Like
He only-
5 times.
He's
Like,
only a professional.
He's
Like,
only
come on.
a professional fiduciary with a lot of experience, but hey, it's just wild. So yeah, I'm unfortunately not going to be watching the triggering event of jury instructions, but for Monday's closing arguments, right?
Yep.
Yes,
That should be
that is
exciting.
going to be huge. Obviously,
that's
I'm
gonna be the-
plan on being there.
That's going to be the most frustrating thing on earth to watch is when they can speak without interruption and reiterate and repeat their outrageous lies and misrepresentations of the evidence.
Or watch Richard stumble his way through the English language.
I
don't
hope
know
it's
which is
Sheriff
more
EC.
frustrating.
I hope it's Sheriff EC,
I
but
so hope so.
the
Me too.
attorneys can't actively misstate the evidence.
Yes,
And
that's-
if they do,
They
the
can draw an
defense
objection.
has to object.
Yes,
They have to stand up and do something.
Yes,
It's quite
To at
clear
least
from that.
no.
It's clear from the interpolated still image from a drone footage that has been enhanced that Rittenhouse pointed his gun at Rosenbaum first, despite all the testimony, despite
the expert that can't support his own freaking products.
despite Hernandez, despite McInnes, despite all the witness testimony, that enhanced freeze frame of a footage justifies Binger's opening statement that Rittenhouse pursued Rosenbaum and shot him in the back. It's going to see.
All right. Well,
So
till later, everybody.
Alita's going to
Consider
sleep this weekend.
Oh no, I have a 10K and a 15K to run.
Yes.
Because I passed 10K and I'm doing every 5,000 subs. I'm adding on another 5K
You've
up until
doubled.
50.
Goodness.
You've doubled
So-
your subs, haven't you?
Yeah,
more than.
it has been an insane week on Twitter. A week ago, I had like 300 subs. Now I have like 6,800. And now on YouTube, I went from like 6,000 500 to 17,000, almost 18,000.
Amazing.
Like
Oh, you got a triple. Damn.
I can't comprehend these numbers. It's been so fast and so like it's I can't comprehend it. It's weird.
It's going
So,
to be an
It's not
entirely
weird.
new.
It's exposure. It's great.
Yes.
It's
Yeah. No,
exposure,
it's fantastic.
It's well deserved, and welcome to
you.
the new world of a different type of stress that you're going to experience going forward. It's a good one though.
The constant
More money, more
notifications.
problems.
Yeah. I finally fully appreciate why Emily has her social free Sundays.
Yeah, I turn
because-
off all my notifications. I don't have
Because-
notifications anywhere. And people are like, I added you. I added you on Twitter. I'm like, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a day. I can't see them all. I don't, but it's then starting to set, because with more eyes, there's just more stuff that happens.
Yeah.
But it's great. And the Stream Monday is going to be busy. Recada's channel has grown. I think he's going to grow 100,000 this month on that channel, which is great, because it's bringing the audience that's interested in the law, and then for his channel interested also in the facts plus the jokes.
I want to see him navigate this though, because it's going to be funny, because a lot of the people who are joining, and I know I talked to David about this, but Recada is an amazing talent and hilarious, but half the people going there will not understand the humor on his chat. So it's going to be.
The chat's been pretty. Chat's been pretty true to form.
No, but when they watch at night,
that's true.
Well, I think
mean,
the bigger issue is going to be he's when the Rittenhouse trial is over, you're going to have to keep the interest of all those people. But I think Nick can make anything in law interesting. So
yes, terribly talented guy.
Yeah.
All right.
And Grace said 60K subs in 1 week.
That's
is
amazing.
Nick's channel. That's incredible.
That's
and
amazing.
I know he was talking about this and said a year ago, he's like, I'm watching this, I'm streaming the whole thing. And I think Nick genuinely doesn't care if anybody watches with him. It's, I am doing this, I am going to stream it, I am going to react. And that is what I'm doing. And it really is like watching fight commentary for the UFC.
It definitely
is. It is.
All right.
Totally.
So let's everybody getting back to it.